For the very first time on this show, we are going to talk sport. There are issues in the sports world in Uganda which we really need to listen to critically and get to understand what goes wrong here and what has to be done. Some years ago, before we went recording, we talked to the president of the Uganda Boxing Federation when he had just gotten into office. But it was in a celebration of Youth Day celebration, so we're talking youth. Years down the road, we have come to talk to him again because there are issues that really he needs to clear before you Ugandans. His name is Mr. Moses Muhanji. He's the president, Uganda Boxing Federation, and he's the one we're going to talk to here about issues to do with sports administration and generally the state of sport in Uganda. So we're glad to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for responding to our request to talk to you during the affirmative. How are you doing? How is office? I talked to you when you had just been elected, but we were talking youth. How many years now?
It's been about 6 years now.
In office?
Yeah.
How would you describe your term so far? How successful? What are the challenges?
First of all, I want to thank you for hosting me on this popular program, which is watched all over the country and I think beyond. And it's true, we last spoke, I think, like 5 years ago or so. Now we have begun our 6th year in leadership of boxing. And of course, it hasn't been an easy road. There has been lots of challenges, but also lots of positives. I'll start with the positives because everything we promised to deliver, we have delivered for boxing.
6 years?
Yes, in the first 5 years, because the term is first 4 years, but it was about 5 years. So we delivered everything we promised Ugandans. First, we promised that we are going to bring boxing back from zero to the mainstream. Now, as we speak, boxing is one of the mainstream sports. You can't mention 3 sports in Uganda without mentioning boxing. We promised to improve its publicity, its PR, so that people don't have to see it as a sport of thugs, sport of failed people. Now that has also changed. The narrative has changed. That's why you see in all our games, you have ministers, you have MPs, you have CEOs coming to be with us in these games. So that is very important. Also, the other thing that we promised and have achieved is, of course, the issue of infrastructure. We promise we will try as much as we can to improve infrastructure for boxing. As we speak, we are now owning 21 acres of land. We have 10 acres in Matuga that was given to us by the Kingdom of Uganda. We thank His Majesty Kabaka and the whole entire team. We have about another 11 acres spread in 15 districts of Uganda, given to us by President Museveni, and that's also a big success. So at least when we came in office, we didn't have land, we didn't even have a spoonful of soil. But at least now we're talking about 21 or so acres of land.
The Federation has accumulated all that?
Yes, in this time frame. We have gone ahead to continue with sports excellence. We've won medals in the Commonwealth Games, 2018, 2022. We've gone ahead to become, for Team Uganda, champions of Africa, 2019 Morocco Games, the next this coming year. So in terms of sports excellence, we are the champions of East Africa. We are #1 in East Africa, that we've done. So in terms of sporting excellence, we have continued to keep the flag up. Then also in terms of governance, we have improved. Because when I came in 2018, boxing was mad with a lot of conflicts, governance. There were like 5 presidents of boxing, right? But at least now governance has improved. There isn't any other more faction. We have only 1 president of boxing. We have 1 office of boxing. 2018, we had 2 offices of boxing. One was in Nalukolongo, one was in Lugogo. Now we have only 1 boxing office. That shows that at least we've been able to streamline the issue of governance. We've gone ahead to secure partners that we've worked with. 2018, the best sponsor boxing I'd ever gotten is someone who bought them bananas in the training camp. Bananas and tomatoes. Right now, we talk about things like Sting, from Pep Scholar. We talk about sponsors like UN Women, UNAIDS, sponsors like Street Finance, Gong DJs, Top Boy Promotions. So you see, at least we have some names that are coming. We have big media platforms that you're working with, TV, even you as UBC. So that shows you that there's some bit of also development in that direction. Our boxers have improved in terms of how they present themselves. And most importantly, we've introduced Champions League, which is a competition that happens every 2 weeks.
How have you managed to galvanize all these achievements in 5 years? In fact, let's start with, what do you think had caused the drama? Let's start, if you look at governance, failure to have any progress. You're talking about land, convincing the whole kingdom to give you land, and government. Those are two big entities to accept to work with you. What was missing that has been brought on board during your time as leader?
What was missing was leadership. Everything, every institution, family, home, companies, businesses, they all thrive or fail depending on what kind of leadership they have. So boxing had a very unfortunate bad leadership at the time. One time I was in Dubai, I think Abu Dhabi maybe some years ago, and a good friend of mine is the owner of big hotels in Dubai. So I was asking him, how come Dubai seems to be more developing, or Abu Dhabi, than Uganda is? And he told me it's only one reason: leadership. If you have a bad leadership, then you cannot grow. If you have a good leadership, then you're going to grow. And you can see it in boxing. All these years, when you came in 2019, there wasn't even an office for boxing. But right now, all these things have happened in 5 years because of a change of leadership. So I believe the challenge for boxing, for all other sports federations that are struggling, is leadership.
The stumbling block was leadership. But if you're to break down the kind of measures you took, of course, with your team, how did you bring back all? You said at some point you had 5 presidents, 2 presidents, 3 officers. How did you bring all these guys on board to see that they're now in one tent?
Well, we didn't have to bring everybody on board, though we brought some on board. There are those we have had to do away with. We have had to make bad decisions or tough decisions and let some of them go. And some who are willing to work, those have come. There are those who are for boxing development. Those we have accommodated them. Those who are there for...
Even when they were in the Rangos, it was for boxing.
Yes, there are those who are fighting for boxing. Those we have brought them. We have them, people like Haji Juma, people like Coach Lihanda, people like Jimmy. So many of them, I can mention so many names. Those were against us, but on boxing reasons. They didn't believe we had a better plan for boxing. But there are also those who are fighting with us because of other reasons, not boxing. Maybe individual, personal, and all sorts of things. So those we have had to let them go. Those who are for boxing, we have accommodated them and we are working with them. Some of them are now very key in the leadership of boxing.
How did you do that? Did you wake up and tell people, please, we cannot work with you? Or you eliminated their activity or their roles within the process?
Most of the time, we have chosen to engage with people, talk to them, try to sell to them our ideas. Right, and then some have bought them. That's why we're able to work with them. And some that didn't buy them and still wanted to be in, the system alone throws you out. It's like how you eat food. You can eat food, and if your body doesn't want that food, somehow you find yourself throwing up or pushing it out somehow, somewhere. So the system can also eject you if you're not aligned to the values of that kind of system. So some of them were ejected by the system, some were accommodated by the system. But so far, even those that were ejected, because they were never having fundamental reasons to fight, they have since gone into oblivion. They have disappeared. You understand? So that's why now we can say we have 1 president of boxing, we have 1 office of boxing, and we have been able to at least stabilize like that. And we think that if we stay stable like that for the next maybe 5, 10, 20, 50 years, then boxing will now grow at a faster rate.
What is the relationship between your leadership and other federation, then the system of sports in the country? Let me mention and be straight: National Council of Sports, Ministry of Education, and other colleagues within the industry.
UBF and sister federations, there isn't so much of a problem. We are working well with them in terms of sports development, and we hope that it stays like that. Now, between ourselves and National Council of Sports and maybe the Ministry of Education and Sports, we also don't have personal problems with anybody in there. We only have clashes in ideas. the class, like we misunderstand each other.
There are areas where you disagree.
Yeah, there are areas where we agree, there are areas where we disagree. Now, most importantly, like in the area of funds distribution, the money that comes from the government to support athletes, to support sports people, when it comes in, however little it is, how it's appropriated to the various beneficiaries, there we have a huge disagreement. Because for us, we think there should be a formula that we all know about, and we all feed into that formula, and people are able to share money from that formula.
What is the status quo?
There is no formula at the moment, because money comes in and someone sits somewhere and just distributes it the way he or she prefers. And now that's a big challenge. It affects the development of the sector.
How is that possible in a government structure?
So I'm saying that is why that it is happening, and that is why we are having this kind of...
Because I thought in a budget process, when Parliament is coming out with a budget, which they read at Kololo or Parliament or wherever, you people put in your submissions of what you expect to spend on in a year, and the distribution is based on that.
No, it doesn't work like that. Now, in the council, how it works is that every federation will submit a budget of things that they need to do in that financial year. Then the council will collect all those budgets, right? Come up with a total, maybe say 200 billion. Then they will go maybe also add on their own needs, then submit to the Ministry of Finance, and then Parliament eventually. Now, Parliament will come and say, whereas you want 200 billion, according from all your submissions, we can afford to give you 50 billion. Like in this case, 47 billion.
Yes.
Right? So you wanted 200, but they're sending you 47. So which means you have to realign your budgets, right? Now, at that point, the council never calls us to sit involved, right? Maybe development programs, maybe number of youths being affected.
Where would that leave you? Let's take an example. If we are to take that kind of criteria, where would it leave you as boxing in comparison with other guys in the different federations?
You see, once you have a fair system, right? A fair system. Now, each one of us would have to play by those factors. You understand? Say, for example, if they say someone who has represented Uganda at the world stage and given us mileage gets maybe 10%. Me who hasn't done that, that means I have a challenge. I have to challenge myself to work hard so that I can represent at the world stage, I can qualify for the 10%.
To have a basis to demand for more next budget.
If I have fewer numbers, if my sport is not a big sport, now, and they are saying they are giving someone 20 million because he's in 20 districts of Uganda, then that means I have to work hard so that I can now multiply. Go to the I have to mobilize people. That means as a federation, you have to work hard so that you can justify why it should be supported. So we are saying, let's have a sit down.
As president of a whole federation, national now, I'm sure you have information about what happens in Kenya, in the neighboring countries, our brothers and sisters where sports is really flourishing. How do they handle a situation like this? Because they are underdeveloped countries like us, but they manage, you see medals in their countries, you see their teams growing good. How do they do things there?
Same thing we are sharing right now, because, for example, in Kenya and South Africa, they look at parameters like performance, presence of the sport in the country, people involved in the sport in the country, comparative advantage. There are sports that people have comparative advantage in. For example, if you go to South Africa, they're into rugby. They invest so much money in rugby because they know they have an advantage over all other countries in the world to win rugby. When you go to India, cricket, they invest so much because they know cricket will put them on the world stage. Brazil is football, China is football. So different countries have identified their own comparative advantages. Now, like in Ethiopia, they focus so much on athletics, so is Kenya. Now, in Uganda, we are still struggling. We haven't, first of all, identified where we have a comparative advantage so we can invest our energies and resources there. Okay. That's why you see, we know athletics is our #1 sport, but when you look at the budget spread, much money goes to football, maybe about 17 billion, and athletics goes for 1.2 billion. So how are you going to make 20 Cheptegei's if you have the sector underfunded? You understand? You look at boxing, it was #3 in the world in the 70s. Now, that means there's a comparative advantage there. But now, because you're not supporting it, it's no longer at that level. When you look at netball, it's #5 in the world. Right now, in this financial year, they're going to get 300 million shillings. Yes. Right? I looked at the... But they are #5 in the world. Yes. Now, football, which is #98 in the world, is getting 17 billion.
Do you meet with the officials at the National Council and in the ministry in charge of sports? And what kind of talks do you hold? What kind of conversations do you hold in as far as this?
I became president in 2018. Yes. By 2018, December, early 2019, I had begun this conversation. And we had engagements. We used to have a sports forum. It's still there anyway. But it later became meaningless to some of us.
Because you see, what is my understanding?
Because in a sports forum, it's chaired by the Minister of State at the time, and the federations come together. Yes. And we raised this issue as early as 2019. We said, let's have a funds distribution guideline for the resources that come in. And then the minister then was Hamson Obua. He promised you're going to work on it. He said moving up and about. Until today, there's no criteria. So you see, you have to understand, the absence of the criteria benefits some people. Right? The absence of it. The presence of it is going to disadvantage some people in terms of monies that they have been accessing. So there are those who are fighting tooth and nail to make sure there's no criteria. So that to their advantage. Yeah, so it can stay to their advantage. You understand? Now, we who are fighting, we hope if it was put in place, then it can benefit the general public for those who are actually doing good work. You get the point? So there's that clashing. Now the challenge is those who don't want it to be, somehow some of them are well positioned in government. Some have good friends in government. So you find that our plea is not immediately listened to or answered to. So when we began in 2019, they would say, oh man, you seems like a mad person. You're attacking football. It's until today, maybe 5 years down the road, that now everyone is getting awake. They're like, okay, what he's saying is right. You understand? It doesn't make sense to give netball, which is in the World Cup, 300 million shillings, and then you give someone who's not featuring anywhere, like motorsport, yes, 3 billion shillings. Because motorsport will never take us to the world stage. There isn't even such a competition for motorsport. So why give them 3 billion and give netball 300 million shillings, boxing 300 million shillings? You get the point. So now somehow some people have gotten enlightened about what you're talking about. The numbers have increased. The mobilization has been so much over time. It's taken a bit of time, but now at least you can see that everyone is getting concerned. Even you, I'm sure you're getting concerned.
Definitely. But ideally, this is what beats my understanding. You may look at a sector where people that understand it get to end into a fight over something nobody else understands it better than them. I'll give an example of intern doctors who are not being helped by a ministry that is being run by doctors who are trained like them. You get? Now, how do you fail to agree as people in the sports industry? Because all of you were groomed as sportsmen, as young boys and girls. You grew into sportsmen and you're now managing the sector, but still you fail to agree. Because I'm sure the men in football know what a boxer needs, so does somebody in boxing knows what people in football need. So what do you think is that irony that fails you to agree as people in the sports industry who understand it more than the rest of us who are in the media, in medicine and everywhere?
I think it depends also on why people end up in the sports sector. There are people who are in the sports sector and for, first of all, individual gain, personal gain. There are those who are in the sports sector to make it a better environment for other people to thrive in, right? There are people who are in this sector and they are short focused. and they can't see beyond Uganda. They can't see beyond Africa, right? So it's a question of someone can be a sportsman, yes, but how far do you see these things? You get the point? Because, for example, people like me, I'm in boxing as a president. I don't earn a salary from boxing. I'm doing voluntary work. You understand? For all these years, I've never earned a coin from boxing. All the executive members are doing voluntary work. So we are not in sport because we want to earn from it. We are in sport because we hope we can create an environment that can help our kids, our grandkids to be able to thrive in life. So now that's why we see our level of analysis goes bigger than what people see. Those who want to make a killing out of sport, they want to build houses out of sport, they will do everything possible to make sure the sector stays disorganized.
One would think that at a point where you have your own at the center, because you have a senior sports leader in the country now in parliament and a very active person, one would expect such things to be tabled at the floor. Currently,
who do you mean?
The musicians are having their own tabling the copyright law. You get? One would expect that such complaints would be now at the center of discussion.
No, I don't know the person you mean, but I'm hoping you mean Moses Magoga, I think.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. I think, well, he's in parliament, he's a sports leader, but I think he's conflicted. You know, when someone conflicted means he's not thinking beyond self. You understand? He's the president of football, and he's trying to find the best for football. You get the point? But he's not looking beyond football, because Uganda is bigger than football. We have 45 million people. They all not do football. So he's not thinking for the country. He's not being patriotic. Because being patriotic means, you know, me, I'm boxing, but I'm not doing well, but Cheptegei is doing well, let's support Cheptegei. That's being patriotic, which he's not doing right now. Because if we can have Cheptegei as a world champion, you have Keprimo as a world champion, that means Uganda has potential to produce 100 Cheptegeis. Right? How do you produce them if you're underfunding the Federation of Athletics? So now Magogo finds himself in a place whereby he has to fight for the interest of football, and he forgets to look beyond the plate of football. That at the end of the day, we have to serve Uganda. That's why, for example, he's fighting so much that we can have Nambole renovated. Right? That
because it's a football facility.
Yeah, because it's a football facility, but you're going to spend 98 billion. Uganda is going to spend 98 billion shillings to renovate Nambole, right? Which Nambole cannot be used by all the other sports. In Uganda, you have 52 sports federations. Not all of them will use Nambole, right? Yet, if we got 1 billion and gave to each federation, each one of the other remaining 51 federations will have a stadium. That will be only 51 billion shillings. So because he's so non-patriotic like that he thinks we would rather spend the 98 billion on Nambole development, the other federations can stay without. You get the point? Which means you're saying all the other Ugandans can stay without access to sports facilities for as long as you've secured for football. Do you understand what the point I'm trying to
Very well. But how does he overpower National Council of Sports, which now looks at the father of all of you sports? Because, okay, if we look at the MP in the sports industry not managing to succeed, at least to help the sports industry in his capacity. You have a father in the name of National Council of Sports.
It's not that, you see how Uganda operates is, of course, there are people, Uganda is a third world country. Some things are not played by the book, right? Some things are played by what people call lobbying. I don't even call it lobbying, it's just a few connections that people have, maybe by family, by friendships, relationships that people have with people. So now someone can be in a position whereby you're a friend with someone who's very powerful at the moment. You understand? And you can cause all the changes you want to cause. But those changes should be for the benefit of the general good, not for you as a person.
Do you see that at the National Council of Sports?
Now, that's what I'm saying. Because, like I told you, there are many reasons to this. There are people who are into sport to make money, to earn a living. Now, for example, many years ago, I have my friend called Robert Jago of table tennis. We were arguing, like after the Olympic Games, the last Olympic cycles, the whole Africa, in terms of, say, boxing, actually all sports inclusive, Africa won only 3 medals. 2 medals in Uganda athletics and 1 bronze medal in boxing that went to Ghana. the rest of the 49, of the 54 countries in Africa.
Nobody carried a medal home
from the Olympic Games. So now the discussion we're having is, but for us to be in Olympic Games, each country spent about 7 billion shillings. Others more money. So the question was, why would we spend 7 billion as Uganda, right, to go to Olympic Games, for example, Commonwealth Games, and come back with a medal which is even worthless? You can't even take it to the shop and buy a kilo of sugar. So the argument we were making was, can we not have a discussion of saying, let's first invest that 7 billion locally home to develop capacity, training grounds, and all sorts of things, so that now Ugandans can have a chance of winning medals. We were resisted because there are those who benefit in the expenditure of the 7 billion at a personal level. So those will not allow your idea of saying first build stadiums, train better. They won't buy your ideas. And some of them are into the council, some of them are into the ministry. So that's what we are dealing with. We are dealing with an issue to do with how people look at the development of sports in the country for Uganda and in the perspective of the rest of the world, and also being able to be patriotic.
Now, we are looking at the challenges within the channel from government, the channel of funds from government to your operations, having challenges. What other alternatives does the sports industry have, and how much have you taken good use of these other opportunities?
Well, you see, before we go to the alternatives, or I would say the first alternative should be, first of all, to do a lot of civic education. Civic education, first of all, to the people involved in the sector. Like it or not, we must keep on conflicting until one group convinces the other of the best way forward for the sports sector in the country. Because the government provides what is called something called seed capital for sports development.
Yes.
That's why they collect taxes from us. Right?
They have a mandate.
They have the money to provide an environment, in terms of stadiums, in terms of, like for example, when we go to compete in these games, world games, it's the government that supports you, because you go to represent the country. You can't ask for a sponsor to give you money so you can go and represent the country. The role of representation at world games, some different types of games, is supported by the government. You understand? Now the other sectors come in to supplement what government has done. So it's something called seed capital. And actually, if that seed capital is managed well, then sports can take off. It can become independent of government. Like it is when you go to Europe, sport is run by private sector. But in the very early beginning, it was government providing infrastructure.
Yes.
Now, government won't provide infrastructure, won't provide seed capital if we have leaders in the sports sector or in the government who are not yet understanding the impact of the sector and what it can do for the people. You understand? That's why we're still having a bit of a challenge. So that's why we need to, first of all, focus. And we can't get tired of it. Because also you can't blame them. Maybe they don't see things like that. So it's our job, like how you go to church, maybe you go to the mosque, and the pastor is teaching you all the time. He can't get tired of it, because he knows what you don't know. And it is his duty to show you the direction. You understand? And the pastor, you see, that's the challenge we have. Because someone is, say, for example, a minister of sport, the assumption that he knows more of sport than we who are on the low ladder. Yes. Yet actually we could know more.
At that level as a minister.
Yes, we could even be knowing more, and we only have to work with you so that we can show the direction. For example, my brother, Uganda has now 80% young people.
Yes.
Below the age of 35, right? Now, these young people, most of them can't access jobs, civil employment. Even if they did, it can't consume all of them. They can't be in the private sector because they don't have the capital. Most of the young people have now changed. They are no longer into farming. Uganda has changed. Population has evolved. When our fathers were growing, everyone wanted to dig. Everyone wanted to have a farm. Yes. But now a young person of 30 years, you would struggle to convince him to go and get a hoe and start digging. Some don't even have the land to dig from. So the priorities have changed. And that we must accept as a country and see how to deal with that. Now the young people, which I associate with all the time, they are into things related to talent. Mm-hmm. They want to develop their talent in music, talent in sports, talent in crafts. That's where their focus is. And they believe talents in computer use. That's why most of them on the internet and all sorts of things, digital world. The young people are now focused on that. If we must help them as a government, we must also focus in those directions. Now, there are key areas: digital world, music, sports, right, where the youths are concentrated.
Sectors that can really absorb the young people.
Yes, and they can absorb them in big numbers. If you have a football match going on, you will have thousands of people there. Yet in an office, in a farm, you can't have 1,000 people farming. You understand? You can't go to any civil office and you find there are 1,000 people seated there. But sport can mobilize people in big numbers. So what are we doing as a country, and where are we missing a point, is that the areas that the youths are interested in, digital world, sports and music, we are not investing there. They are not even starting to reduce those sectors. For example, I see the musicians are fighting for copyright law. That's where most youths are, but government is not paying attention. The sports law, until today, we are operating in a law of 1960. Things have changed, you understand? So you look at the budget for Uganda. They just read the budget a few weeks ago. The budget doesn't, out of the budget of about 525 trillion shillings, sport is going to get only 47 billion. But sport is the sector that has the youth, the young people.
The biggest number.
Music has no money on that budget. You understand? ICT also has little money onto that budget. So the rest of the money, so you see our budget spend conflicts
the facts on the ground.
The facts on ground. And now this is a message that we need to find a way of delivering to the policy makers. The challenge you've been having, the biggest challenge you've been having is that we lack the platforms. Because you can either talk about those things if you're in parliament. So if you're not a member of parliament, then you won't have a chance to talk about these things. So now a show like this one is very fundamental for us to be able to bring out these views, hoping they will watch the show and maybe see these kind of things and also receive them in a good way, not receive them as if, oh, this guy is a showy. He's showing us. He's like, he knows more than we do. That's the biggest challenge we're having in the country. You say something that's legit, because someone has not seen it, they think you're being a showy.
Are there countries?
You're undermining them, you understand?
I'm looking at a technicality of always football attracting more attention than other sports, even in places where it's not that having the center stage. Are there countries that are funding other sports more than football?
When you look at cricket in India, when you look at rugby, South Africa, when you look at Brazil, they're doing football, China, woodball, right? You get the point. If you go to Ethiopia, they are funding so much of athletics because that's why they have an advantage. But also, you see, we can't run Uganda by basing on what is happening in other countries. Uganda has its own unique problems. You understand? So as a country, well, football is very popular. It's a popular sport. But that doesn't mean that it should be our niche sport here. Because it is popular in Brazil and it's making sense in Brazil, that means it will make sense here as well. You get the point? So we need to look at our problems of Uganda and be realistic about them.
You are blamed, not you, Moses Mohanji, but leaders in the sports world, of mishandling funds when they come to your coffers as leaders in the sports world. Don't you think this is one of the reasons why those that release the funds don't take you seriously?
I don't think so. In Uganda, you've had financial scandals in all sectors. People stealing billions of money. At least you haven't had anyone in the sports sector who has stolen billions of money. Have you had any? That so-and-so in the sports sector right now with 1 billion or 5 billion or 20 billion? But see in the health sector, people running out with funds, military, people running out with funds, health, all these other sectors, parliament itself, right? So the other sectors also have cases of people mismanaging funds.
But they
that hasn't stopped the government from funding those sectors. You understand? Now, sport alone is getting, I think, out of the budget that comes the Ministry of Education and Sports, because the budget for education and sports is about 3.5 trillion. Right?
I was somewhere.
I'm trying to show you something. The budget for education and sport is 3.5 trillion.
Yes.
But sport gets only 47 billion, which is 0.01% of that budget. But this is a sector that's absorbing thousands and thousands.
Because even in the schools themselves, there is sports.
You get a point.
Yes,
and also, if you look at, say you're investing 3.4 trillion, maybe, to the education bit, right? But when you look at sport and the other mainstream education, which one creates jobs faster than the other? if the idea of taking your child to school is that he goes to school, graduates, and gets a job, that's going to take him about 16 years. From P1, do you know how many years it takes you to graduate from Makerere? About 16 years.
Yes. And
then struggle to get a job for another maybe 3 years. So it takes you about 20 years out of the mainstream education system for you to get a job. Yet in sport, you train this year, next year you have a job. And you're employing other people around you.
I was with a colleague, near a colleague, as he interviewed one of your brothers in the sports industry.
Yeah.
Actually, he was an official of the National Council of Sports. Yeah. And this person said, these federation people, you may look at a team going, for example, to Germany, Spain and wherever. You will find that all the officials are having bigger allowances than the players. So we are going to cut those budgets. So I picked interest and asked, what happens?
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that people choose, you know, when people are stuck with ideas, they choose to go for the basics, for the petty things, right? If you look at Uganda's budget for travel, every single day members of parliament are traveling in huge sums of numbers. They are going to do what? Benchmark here, they travel. You go to parliament and look at their travel spend. People in the ministries.
In the new budget, the minister said there are no travels.
It was so alarming to a point that even the Ministry of Finance says, you know what, we are fed up, no more travels. Those are not all sports travels. People are traveling for all sorts of reasons.
Are you justifying the travels?
I'm trying to show you that the travels shouldn't be the reason people use to undercut the budgets for sports, right? It should be, because how would you do sports if you're not traveling? How would you compete with Kenya if you don't go to Kenya? How would you compete with America if you don't go to
the gentleman's complaint was that you officials that go to supervise these teams, you take more allowances than the boys, than the girls.
No, that kind of person needs more enlightenment. I'll give you an example for the sport of boxing. For just one boxer to travel to a competition, he must be accompanied by 3 coaches. There's a padman, there's a second number 1, second number 2. Just one boxer. Those are 3 officials, right? Those are coaches. Yes. Then he needs a physio person. When he gets an injury, who's going to treat him? Right? Standard, he needs a nutrition person. Those are how many people now? 6.
Yes.
Now that team needs management because they want to go on their own. So just one boxer to go on a standard way, you would have had another like 7 people escort him. Around him. Just one boxer. So now they'll come and say, oh, one boxer, how could he have 7 officials? Because they don't understand what sport is all about. But you see, that number is not so alarming compared to the numbers who are traveling in the other sectors of government. You go to judiciary and see how many people are traveling every single day for workshops, whatever, something like that. Things that don't even actually return any value to Uganda. When athletes go to compete, they return value for Uganda in terms of publicity. We are winning prize monies. So our travels are even justified. Because, for example, you can go travel, sell Uganda, save it money for advertising on CNN, and also come back with money into the country when we win, right? But now, these workshops that people are doing in ministries, back to back, what is Uganda benefit from them?
They come with the knowledge.
But you're going to find one person attending similar workshops for the 30 years he has been in the ministry. So what kind of knowledge is that he has never acquired? You get the point, eh? So now...
so are you refuting allegations of mismanagement of funds within federations?
No, it's not there. It's just that people are not well explained to these issues. You get the point? And this has been one of the biggest challenges of our leadership in the ministry. Because we struggle to have a leadership that can be able to defend us and sell us to the rest of the other competing sectors. So because the leaders we have, somehow, somewhere, they have failed to make a pitch, to make a case, to justify the things we are doing, now they come back to us and say, it's like when you're a man in the house.
Yes.
You go to look for money and you fail to get money. When you come back, you say, now no more salt, no more sugar in the house.
You cut off all the
yeah, no more water, no more toothpaste. You get the point. You guys, you can use a tree, get a tea branch, and then brush your teeth, right? After other people have been using it, we use it when we were growing up, right? So your failure to make more money to support your family makes you start victimizing. Yes. So now some of our leaders in the sports sector, having failed to convince the other people to give us more resources, now they turn to the sector. Yes. But it doesn't make sense.
You yourself have been blamed.
Yes. No, me, I've been blamed.
What went wrong on your side?
Because of this kind of conversation that I'm having with you. Now, some people don't receive it with positivity. Some receive it with a lot of negative vibes. So they think this young man, he thinks he knows it all. He's too arrogant. He seems proud. He thinks we don't know what we are doing. And because of that, they're like, who does he think he is? You understand? So the first action was, how do we take him out of our sector? Because if we remove him out of the sports sector, the noise will not be there. We will be peaceful, right? And now they realize they cannot go into the boxing community and have me out because I'm too popular there. The boxers like what I'm doing, right? Now the only option left was, what other way can we find to use so that this guy can leave this sector? Is now come up with charges like those ones. The charge I have, they say I forged a receipt, right? Worth about $850. That's about 3.5 million shillings. Yes. Right? They say we forged the receipt. They don't say the service was not there. There's no one complaining about the service. There's no one saying I was not paid. We who procured the service, we are comfortable, we are okay. And the service happened, the team was selected, even went Commonwealth and won a medal. But they are saying, then they say, submit accountability. We submitted all the accountability as required, right? For about 224 million shillings. But they are saying, out of all this accountability, this receipt, we think you forged it.
So it's about one receipt that
they think was forged.
You didn't sleep at home for some weeks.
For 2 weeks, yes. A receipt of 3.5 million shillings. And then you have to understand, me as president, I'm not the one who does spending of the money. Right? They are accountants there. You have people who do the actual spending and organizing these events. So when they are done spending, they collect receipts from whoever they have transacted with. Now my job is to pick whatever they have gathered
on behalf of the whole entity.
Yeah, and then submit it to government. So I can, because I'm not full time. Remember, I'm a voluntary worker. I can't start calling every person on the receipt to confirm that he or she is the one who gave us the receipt. And remember, no one is complaining, because up to now there's no complainant. If there had been a situation of someone coming and saying, you know what, I supplied tents, I wasn't paid, then I would have a reason to follow it up. No one is complaining, services are provided, everyone is happy, I have submitted, 2 years down the road someone says this receipt was forged. You get the point? So yet even that someone who's accusing me of that, he very well knows that I am not the one who's doing the actual expenditure. When we went to Parliament, I went with the accountants, both of them. The current and the former. And the accountant said, we are here, we are the ones who do the expenditures. But because there are other underlying factors, people who are not happy with what I talk about.
So let's put this clear. So for me, you have not mismanaged any coin of boxing.
No.
As accused?
No, zero. Actually, we have spent more money, our own mobilized funds, into boxing than even the government has given us. So for example, in a year, like for example, I'll give you an account. Year 2020, 2021, government gave us only 30 million shillings. But in that year, we spent about 500 million shillings.
So where did you get the rest of the money?
So I'm saying, if we are able to mobilize money elsewhere and inject in the federation, right, to a tune of almost like 470 million, then how would you think we would want to mismanage the 30 given to us? The year 2021, 2022, which caused us issues, the government gave us 224 million for Commonwealth Games preparation. Tagged for Commonwealth. You can't spend it anywhere other than Commonwealth Games. But that same year, we had so many activities. Novices, intermediates, national opens, workshops, all these things were funded by us. So you cannot say that we were able to fund all the other activities and now we mismanage the little money you've given us. This year alone, government promised to give us 3 billion. Then they changed it, they said they'll give you 1 billion. As we speak, they have only given us 133 million shillings. But every single 2 weeks, we spend 20 million shillings to run Champions League.
How much do you think would be the budget for your federation? Relatively, fairly, yes.
This year's budget we passed from the assembly is about 15 billion.
15 billion?
Yeah, for UBF.
To have all your activities covered.
Have activities, develop our infrastructure. Now, like I told you, we got land, we need to develop the land. You see, we need to buy rings where people can do boxing from. As we speak, we have only 2 active rings in Uganda. and they're all bought by one of our promoters, Top Boy Promotions. Uganda as a country has no ring at the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
In this kind of a situation, with all the challenges, especially monetary challenges to sponsor operations, where does it leave the sport in terms of it being spread over the country, youngsters in schools, and things like that?
We are in a very unfortunate state because, like I told you, things are not the way they should be. And they are not...
Because you are complaining in Kampala.
Yeah.
A young man dreaming to be a boxer in Karamoja.
It's almost impossible. How do you make it? Because if you're in Karamoja, where would you train from? If you can't see a ring, you can't have gloves, how would you manage these things? So it's a very appalling situation. But as a country, people like me have started coming up to speak about these things. There are others also picking up. Even you, for example, now you've taken an initiative to come and interview me about this, give me a platform. 2018, maybe nobody would give me a kind of platform. Maybe millions of people are watching the show. Maybe Museveni could be watching, or First Lady, or President, or anybody. And maybe he picks interest.
You have mentioned a number of challenges. So as you wait for things to go the right way, how are you going to be managed?
No, of course, as we wait, we also continue to keep trying other areas, like private sector. That's how we've been able to procure sponsors like Sting from Pep Scholar brand. We are getting people like Top Boy Promotions who are helping us who bought us the rings, for example. We have gotten people like the IBA president who has offered to build for us a modern boxing academy in Uganda. That's why we're engaging like people like the Kabaka to give us land. So we are also not seated. We keep trying to engage with other people, though our speed is going to be very slow. Okay. If we had the capital from the government, we would move faster. So now, if we are supposed, for example, to impact on 1,000 young people this year, because we are moving in a slow manner, we're going to impact on 100 people. If we had the support from the system, then we would cover maybe 2,000 people. So it's a question of when we shall be able to help the government address the concerns of the young people. So the slower we move, the more the young people are going to be, they'll be frustrated. That's why you see all of them, whenever we have political campaigns, they are against the system. I'll give you an example. When I was in Ruzira, I was there for 2 weeks, 14 days. And I was in a session called Kampala Remand. Yes. We were about 2,000 inmates.
After the main gate.
Yes. We were 2,000 inmates at the time, and 500 of them were boxers. Right? And then when I got in there, they come to me.
They go to their leader.
Yeah. So they came to me and I was listening to them, saying, what's your issues? Someone was like, oh, me, I was brought here because they found me. They said I was idle, trespass, someone lost a phone. They said I stole it. But these are all young people, 18 years, 19, 20, all grounded in one place, non-productive. And I'm like, what's happening? Someone like, oh no, I haven't even been taken to court in the last 1 year. I don't even know why I'm here. Some don't even know their crimes, right? They were just picked and thrown there, right? So now, these are young people who would be a strong production force for the country. But now they're all idle. And you know what they were telling me? They were like, even if we come out, we are not educated. We don't have land. We live in the city. Right?
All I have is myself.
All I have is myself and maybe the sport of boxing. So if the federation is not having activities, we are not competing, but we have the skill. Should we die hungry? That's why I'm going to find someone on the street and I box him and I pick whatever they have. So they were like, President, even if we come out, the next 1 month we shall be back here. Because there's nothing much to do out there.
What would be your message to the stakeholders with that kind of information as we wind up?
To the people in the sports sector is that we should continue to dialogue and engage, and let's try to be open-minded. Let's not receive things negatively. Let's try to receive things positively. You understand? Because now the biggest thing is that most of our friends, they are still receiving our messages in a negative way. This also try to think beyond self, right? Because beyond self means, like for me, all the things I'm trying to do is that I'm thinking if my son who's 8 years old chooses to become a swimmer, where is he going to swim from? Because not everyone is going to become a professor. Some people, not everyone is going to become an engineer. My son could choose to become a basketballer. Right? In Uganda, do you know any facility that's gazetted for basketball and is owned by Uganda?
No.
Do you know any facility owned for netball, owned by Uganda, in Uganda? There's no facility for netball, not boxing, not anything, save for the Namboole and Nachivubo. The rest are nowhere to be seen. There's no facility for volleyball. You understand? So now if my son chooses to become a volleyballer, and that's why he wants to make his living from. You understand? So everything we are doing, we are fighting for our next generation, so they don't have to struggle the way we have struggled. Now, that's a message that should go to the people in the sports sector. Don't think about what you're putting in your pocket today. Because today you're lucky you're in that position, you have that kind of access. But how about your child? Maybe I could be a minister of sport. I could be chairman of the National Council of Sports. But does that mean my son will also be a chairman of the National Council of Sports? Definitely. So what if my child chooses to be a runner? Then how is he going to succeed in life? So this is a conversation we need to have with these guys so that they stop being petty. Like the reason I went to say, because some people are petty, right? You can't stop ideas by suppressing them. Just sit down, discuss, win, lose, win some, win, lose some, right?
Maybe there is a problem with how you package these messages to these guys. Have you checked that?
You see, the issue could be packaging, right? The issue could be whatever you want to call it, but the message is the message, right? Don't lose the subject matter. It's like, don't focus on how we are packaging. Focus on the subject matter. What are we talking about? You get the point? So even if you don't agree with how I'm packaging it, okay, no problem. But what am I talking about? You get the point? So now that's why the challenge is you cannot say that you're worrying about the packaging of a message and you're not worrying about the fact that Uganda has no boxing rings. So because I have packaged it badly, so we'll never have the rings. You get the point?
Very well.
Does it make sense to you that because the way I package the message is not good for you?
The issue is the packaging, not the message.
Not the rings, you understand? Like for example, like in the next financial year, because Muhanji is saying what he's saying, boxing has been downgraded from 3 billion as of last year in the budget to now 300 million shillings. So what's the explanation for that? Because we all know that by budgeting principles, you can either lose 10% or add on 10%. Now, why would we move from 3 billion to 300 million shillings? It's just clear that someone is not happy with me, so they think, what do we do to manage? Let's frustrate him. Understand? But by frustrating me, you're denying young boxers a chance to go and compete. Because me, I'm no longer a boxer. I don't need to go to the Olympic Games. I don't want to go to Commonwealth Games. But by you giving me 300 million shillings means a boxer called John won't have a chance to go to the games. When he doesn't go to the games, he's going to come and hit you with an iron bar on the street. You who denied us the money. You get the point? Yeah. So these are the things that we should discuss beyond just the packaging. Don't kill off the whole entire federation of netball because you're disagreeing with the Babiji. There are so many girls, boys who are doing netball. So they shouldn't be denied because of a petty misunderstanding. And what is the misunderstanding about? That I'm telling you to buy rings, that I'm telling you to procure facilities for me as the boxing president. I've told you in 5 years, I've been able to get land offers from the president of Uganda and the Kabaka. Tell me what land offer that has a minister of sport gone and gotten from anyone. You have more power than I have. You're the chairman of council, you have more power than I have, right? By the time me, a small guy, can get 10 acres, means you can get 100 acres. The president of Uganda is that, President, we respect you, but we think you've neglected the sports sector, either intentionally or unintentionally. Unintentionally could have been that maybe people are not giving the right messages about the sports sector and where they want you to make an intervention. So it's important that maybe at one stage, you come down, meet with federation presidents. We are not employees of these federations. We do not want money from you. We want to share with you ideas on how the sector can make sense to the rest of the country and our future generations.
His name is Moses Muhanji. He's the president of the Uganda Boxing Federation.